Good morning. This is
Morning.
Willing for All podcast, where conversations are worth having and saying. You can catch us each week on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. You can also listen in on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. And for more information about this show and past shows, go to my website, which is behind me, www.blainsworld.net. I'm your host, Blaine Greenfield, and I'm coming to you from my Zoom studio in lovely downtown Fairview, North Carolina. Each week, we focus on positive news and information about upcoming shows and about people and organizations in Western North Carolina and throughout the country. And toward that end, it's my pleasure to introduce three of my favorite local actors, and they are Delina Hensley, Tim Sampson, and Alison Lamasney. And guys, you can wave to all your fans and friends who are watching this. Okay, and these are three of the people in this upcoming show. I should mention to you up front that I'm not familiar with the show, so I'm really excited having you talk about it. And toward that end, before we talk about the show itself, if we can just kind of go around and talk a little bit about your backgrounds and maybe give me the Reader's Digest version, keeping it, if you can, to under like an hour each. So I'll first ask Tim if you give the short version, Tim, of your background, and then I'll ask Delina and Allison. But Tim, in terms of theater, how long have you been involved in theater?
So I've been performing since I was 8 years old. I got involved in community theater because of a wonderful third grade teacher that I had that encouraged me to audition for the show The Music Man. And that was my first ever show, and I had a blast, and I caught the acting bug, and I've been doing it ever since.
Now I have to
Uh,
ask you, since you mentioned the teacher, what was the teacher's name?
oh gosh, I knew you were going to ask me that, and now I'm so embarrassed that I can't
Really?
remember.
Okay, if you remember, catch it later. But that's really cool.
Yeah.
You used to remember. Now it's so cool. I'm going to be in a version, I think, of The Music Man coming up at this summer at SOT.
Oh,
So
excellent.
it should be fun to come see that as well. So you
Yeah.
remember the first role? What was your role in that?
I was Winthrop Peru, the kid.
Okay, the kid, and still remember it. I have this idea, and maybe Delina and Allison have heard it before. But what I want to do, and I'd love Dog and Utopia to do it, is I want to do a show where everybody recreates their first role, do like a fundraiser,
Oh my
So,
goodness.
Oh,
like,
wow.
wouldn't that be fun? Like your role,
Sign
Tim.
me up.
Yeah, your role, Tim. Do you was there a record of this anywhere, or is there videotape?
My dad took a video that it still exists somewhere, but I don't think it's on the internet. So,
It's not on YouTube. Put it up. But wouldn't that be a fun thing to do? So
oh my gosh, so fun.
8 years old as a kid, and so you caught the acting bug. You've acted ever since then.
That's right. Yeah. So I went to school for theater in New York and lived there for 7 years. Did it for a while there, and was never on Broadway, but I did a lot of fun things. Then moved back to Virginia. I was acting in DC. I did a show at Ford's Theater in DC, which
Nice.
was Guys and Dolls. That was really fun. But that was what I was rehearsing for when COVID happened. So kind of the entire industry shut down before we got to put that show on its feet, which was disappointing. Um, and then when I moved to Asheville, I knew that, this was an artsy town that supported the arts and like had a good scene, and started auditioning for things here and got cast in Grease. And then subsequently Rent, which was an incredible experience as well. And met Mark through the acting scene here, and that's how I got involved with Dogged Utopia.
And
And this was my first show with them.
I was so disappointed with Rent because I couldn't get a ticket. It was like sold out.
Yeah,
I was really
it sold
annoyed.
out
I
really fast.
wanted to say that too.
Yeah.
So, and that must have been interesting to you. So you're doing Rent, and were you in rehearsals for this show at the same time?
No, so Rent actually ended 2 weeks before rehearsals for this started. So it was a pretty quick turnaround, but not overlapping,
Okay,
fortunately.
great. And so, same thing too. I've known Allison for a while. I've known Allison, what, since you were 7 years old, I think, Allison. It
Roughly.
seems like. But Allison, your background too, in terms of theater, I've seen you in a bunch of stuff. How'd you get involved?
So, musical family, and my mother played the piano and is a classical musician in that sense, and played for church. And my sister loved musical theater, and so I grew up listening to it. And then when I was old enough, started becoming involved as well, and that was in Atlanta. And so we were there up until I was 16. So everything, from childhood was a little bit more choral based. Are probably the coolest show that I got to do was Carmina Burana with the Atlanta Symphony and ballet, and they also brought in a professional treble choir, that's what I was part of, and so I got to view this orchestra and ballet in the Fox Theater, which just that was the moment that I was like, well, I'm never getting over this. This is pretty incredible.
Do,
And so then, yeah.
do you remember your first show?
La, 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 la. I was Bonnie the Beautiful Butterfly.
Okay, and what was that?
It was a school show, and I was probably 4.
Okay. Same thing. Do we have a record of that somewhere?
Yes, there is a VHS tape that my parents occasionally threaten me with, and when I'm not actively. Mm-hmm.
Well,
Yeah.
I told you I definitely want to recreate that one as well sometime. So Bonnie the Butterfly, you grew out from there, and then I had the pleasure of watching you in a bunch of stuff at Sod, and I've seen you since.
Mhm.
Out of all the stuff you've done up till now, what's your favorite role?
Oh, wow. I would say I've had some roles that I've really enjoyed, but I'm going to go with the one that I love that's most recent, which is Charlotte Malcolm in A Little Night Music out at Heart.
I was going to say,
Charlotte has been a dream role for, oh God, it had probably been a dream role for about 10 years. I was in it as one of the quintet at SART and loved the show. Beverly Todd was Charlotte in that production.
right.
And I loved it. And she was so hilarious and poignant. And I just loved that role. And then fast forward 10 years later, and I actually got to play Charlotte. So that was a wonderful experience for me,
And,
as well as having a live orchestra for
and what a
that.
great show that was. Just a beautiful show. And so I remember I've seen that. I've seen you, we could sometimes kid, I've seen you in just about everything you've been in, or tried to see in everything you've been in. And
Right.
Delina, the same question of you in terms of your background. Do you remember when you first got into acting?
I first got into acting, much like Allison. I was in, I think my first time I was in a show was, I don't know, fifth grade. I could not tell you what it is, but the first memorable one that I knew that I was going to be performing for the rest of my life um, was I was 17 and it was a performance of Sweet Charity, and I played Helene in Sweet Charity. So I played, one of the um, supporting bits in that, and then it went from there. It went from there. I went crazy from there. So
True Charity, one of my favorite shows. Yeah, I'm disappointed you don't see too many people do it. I haven't seen it done
no.
locally. Amazing, Alison. The only place I saw it was at Mars Hill. They did a student production
Mm,
of it. I don't know if you saw it, Alison, but I was amazed they did that show as a student, production at
mhm.
Mars Hill of all places. But what a great show! But I've never seen anybody doing it do it locally. It's too bad.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
a
I'm
great.
probably a little too old to play it. A little too old to play it now. But it really got me into it, got the bug. And I was actually kind of interested. It was crazy to me that high schoolers did it because it's a bit adult themed there, but we
Well,
did it. So here we are.
but doing the same thing too, I was amazed that that Mars Hill did it, in terms of
Mhm,
giving the background. Allison was in that era when Mars Hill was very, very conservative, and
mhm,
just they would do Sweet Charity and they carried it off. But
Mhm.
Sweet Charity, great show that you remember. Since
mhm.
then, you've acted ever since then?
Oh yeah, yeah. I actually performed. I did spend about a year in New York City trying to do the thing. Realized that I was not made for city. Period. Just not me. Came back, and I've actually worked a lot at the college level theater. Doing directing, assistant directing, outreach into the community, that sort of thing. But on top of everything, performing was always my big thing. And so when I moved to Asheville, I immediately started, doing those, auditions. My first show here was the Philadelphia Story, when Bernie, the late great Bernie, directed here in Asheville. So that was just, a straight play. And then from there, I found my way into the musicals because, I grew up in musical theater. So.
Mhm.
So I have to ask you in terms of watching a perform, which I absolutely love, um, comedy or not comedy roles? What do you prefer?
Well, that's a tough one because I tend to obviously get cast in a lot of comedy because I do a lot of comedy, and it's fun. And yes, I'm going to say it, I'm good at it. But I really, what a lot of people, I was excited to do this particular role because it's not comedy, really. There's some moments of levity in the show, but it's serious. It's serious themed. And I have desperately, been wanting to, audition. And a lot of times an audition will come up, I'll miss it or whatever. But when people come to me, the first thing they do, they say is, I have this really funny role I think you'll be really great at. I'm like, thank you. I appreciate that. So I've actually been trying my best to get more into serious stuff because a lot of people haven't seen me do the serious stuff. So I'm really excited to chow down on that kind of stuff.
And that's why I'm anxious to see you because, yeah, I think I've seen you, I don't know if every comic role you've done, but just you
Yeah,
always crack me
probably.
up. So I have to think in terms of non-comic roles in the local area, have you done it? Others?
Yes, I have done some shows with Dark Horse Theater when they were still working. We did a production called um, Alice Underground, and that I played the Cheshire Cat, and it was themes about suicide and things and stuff like that. And again, I was in it was a narrator type role. I played the Cheshire Cat, but I wore it was a different kind of. It wasn't Alice in Wonderland. It was just kind of based on that sort of thing. And I was you know, kind of a beatnik. I had the hat and all kinds of things. He rolled it down and that kind of stuff. So it was pretty serious themed as well. But that was one of the first shows that they did, and that was a fun show, and I really enjoyed doing that. The other I take that back. The other serious role that I did was Enchanted April. I did Enchanted April, and I actually played Rose, which is the more serious character. And in that show, it turns out she lost a child and all this stuff. I got to cry on stage. I was very excited. That was at ACT. I got to cry on stage. So that was probably, if anybody saw any of them, that was probably the one that they saw.
Okay, and it kind of segues into the next question I'll ask Delina in terms of this show then, which I have to admit I don't know anything about. So it's the Dolls of New
Mhm.
Albion, is it?
Albion.
Albion, I'm sorry. And so
Hmm.
what's, for the benefit of the folks who don't know what that show's about, if you
Hmm.
can keep the summary of this to under, again, an hour, can you give a
Hey,
Reader's Digest
absolutely.
version of it?
Absolutely.
What's the show
So,
about?
so basically, it takes place over there's four generations. There's four generations that it takes place, and it's steampunk. So there's and it taught you find out the lives and how the lives of these four generations connect through the years, and there's alchemy involved, there's uh machinery, there's crazy ambition, there's and the consequences of that ambition, um and it follows basically the main through line is the McAllister family, which Alison actually plays the first McAllister, basically. She plays Annabelle McAllister, and it goes from there, and you talk about, and it goes through all of the trials and tribulations of that entire family through the generations.
So before doing the show, had you been familiar with it at all?
No, no,
Okay.
no. When Mark sent me the music, and I immediately fell in love with it, and I was like, yes, I will do this show. I was very excited to do it,
And one of
but I'd never
the
heard of it before ever.
Okay, one of the interesting things about what you're saying is one of the things that the theater company does, the Dogged Utopia, is they put on stuff that's not typically done elsewhere. And so I'll ask Allison, same kind of question. Allison, had you been familiar with the show at all?
No, I had not heard of it. Eric was Martinez is the
Right.
one who's familiar with it, and so Eric is the producing director of Dogged Utopia, and we had just finished another production, and then he brought forth to me the idea of the Dolls of New Albion, which he already knew he wanted to do. And that was the first time I had ever heard of it. He let me know that I could find the music on Apple Music, I believe. It might be on Spotify as well, and
Yeah.
but it's on some platforms, and there are one or two YouTube videos of like grainily recorded video of some live productions, but there really isn't, other than an official cast recording, there really isn't much material out there to even consume, which is sort of nice as an actor, because then you don't have a ton of expectation or set up around the way that the role is supposed to look.
I was going to
So,
ask you that too. As an actor, do you like seeing a show or production beforehand, or do you rather go at it without having seen it?
that's such a difficult question, right? Because a lot of times you have to know the collective, cultural expectation of the show, and what the audience believes that they will see to a certain extent. But it is also, the onus is on you to bring your own interpretation so that they see something familiar, but also something that is personal, because the more individual and personal it is, the more universal it reads as. So it's important to sort of balance the two. It's an excellent question. It's a difficult answer.
Now,
Yeah.
had you
Well
mentioned
said.
a cast album? Have you heard the whole cast? Have you heard the whole score yet?
Yes.
So you got the cast album, or you track
Yes, you
access to it?
can. No, so you can find it on Apple Music.
Okay. And again, boy, how times have changed, where you can dig this stuff up. And Tim, I'll ask you the same question. Were you familiar with the show at all?
Yeah, definitely did not know anything about it going in. I was because the tag that was presented to me was it's a steampunk opera. And so in my head, I was like, okay, what does that even mean?
Well, wait, let me stop you a second, because I have to ask you the same question. When Eric told me about steampunk opera, what is a steampunk opera?
So
It's not
steampunk, I think, speaks to the visual style, where it's like, it's mechanical and it's sort of like, I want to use the word greasy, but that makes it sound like, I don't know. But yeah, it's like mechanical and style, very stylized. And then an opera just means that there's no dialogue at all. Everything is sung.
Have you done anything like this before?
I have not. No, this is my first. Sorry about my dog in the background. This is my first
Steampunk opera.
steampunk opera. Yeah, don't have any of those on my resume, but
Well, it's
I'm
funny.
excited for it.
I think I told you off the air that I saw you in Greece, which is on an ACT, and I just loved you in that show. But I'm missing the one thing I'm missing. I don't know if you'll have it in this one, the wig. Do you get that wig in this one,
I
or
don't think I have a wig in this one, which I'm not necessarily mad about.
okay? But it was
But
the
I think
craziest
I've
wig.
got my character is a soldier, so I think I've got a nice like soldier uniform, and I might have a hat involved with that as well. So.
And I had asked Alison in terms of preparing for this, did you then, or in general, and I'll ask you this, and then Greece as well, did you go into you try to find YouTube clips, or is that something you do before a show? Do you find other
So
examples?
I'm the type of actor. I don't want after I get cast in a show, I try not to consume any media that exists of existing productions. This one was easy because I didn't know it at all. I mean, obviously, I listened to the cast recording to get an idea of the songs and how they sound. But I don't like to go looking for videos of performances because I always get influenced by that sort of thing and like choices that the actors made. So to make it my own, I try to avoid that as much as possible. Now with Grease, that was obviously a different story because everybody knows that movie. Everybody, I've been in the play before, and like, so obviously there was a lot of pre-existing ideas of what that show was, and it was a little bit harder to make it my own and make my own choices. But I think the work that we did in that show definitely made it unique.
Do you have a preference in terms of shows doing something you know or something you don't know?
Oh man, I love doing shows I don't know.
Really?
I love doing new shows. I love putting up work that no one's seen before. Because then it's like your performance is the one that people remember.
It's helped be fun because again, I haven't seen it. I'm sure, just about with the exception of Eric, who has this amazing knowledge of stuff that nobody else knows about. I don't think other people know about this show.
Yeah.
I'll go to back to Delina in terms of the show. Three of you are obviously in it. Talking to you with Delina is a cast of eight, I think you said, the people in
Yeah,
it.
I think actually there's nine of us. I'm counting right now. One, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight. There's actually nine of us total
And so
in the show.
Mark Jones is the director, is that correct?
Yes.
And which is great. The two of
Yes.
them have this great combination that Mark Jones and Eric Martinez work so well together. Aside from the three of you, can you tell us who else is in this show?
Absolutely. And I can go through very quickly. I have it pulled up. I know their names, but I want to make sure I get their last names right. We have Carl Rosenthal, who plays Jasper. Eric himself, Eric Martinez, is in the show as well. He plays Edgar McAllister. Greta Elizabeth, who plays Faye. Um, Andrew Wilson, who plays Byron McAllister. Tasha Pepe, who plays Amelia, Carly Christensen, who plays Priscilla McAllister, and then, of course, myself, Allison, and Tim. So,
And what I like about some of the names you mentioned, I know some of them, but some of them I'm not familiar with. Is that with you too? Have you acted with all those folks before?
I personally, I've not performed. I've known Allison
Right.
from before in some other with friends and things, but I don't know. I didn't know anybody else, and I was very excited about that because in this city, you tend to work with a lot of people a whole lot. All these people are brand new to myself anyway.
I was going to ask you that because a lot of them are new to me. I've seen the
Mhm,
three of you and maybe one other, Tasha, who I love as a performer, and she hasn't done too
mhm,
much lately, so it's great to see her. But
mhm.
is that something if you had a choice, would you prefer acting and performing with people you know or people who are new to you?
Well, I was excited about this one because I didn't know anyone, and it made it fun because, again, I had no expectations of this show. And because I hadn't seen it and didn't know anything about it, it's like we're all starting fresh with this particular show, and we can really kind of we've made it our own. Period. The characters, the way that we do things, we've made it our own. And even though I do love performing, there's something about performing with people you know because you're comfortable with them when you perform with them, you're comfortable, and so you know what you can do and you know what you can get away with. But when it's people that's different, it's just it's like almost like learning a brand new language. It's fun. It's a lot of fun.
And to talk with you with Delina then, in terms of putting on a show, and I don't know if people realize what it involves, but you're only going to be doing the show for what, 2 weekends or 2 weeks?
Mhm,
Is that it?
mhm.
And yet for 2 weeks, how long have you been in rehearsal and talk about that process?
So, I mean, currently at the moment, we've only gone through our second week of rehearsal, and that's 4 days a week. And so we literally, this past Thursday, that ended our second week. And so what that means, we've got two more weeks. Is that right? 2 more weeks, something like that before we open.
Oh, wow.
And the process is wonderful. And again, like Tim was talking about earlier, there's no dialogue. It's all music and it's all singing. So we're just focused. It's all the music. That's all it is. So that makes it in some ways easier, but in some ways harder as well because when you're just singing things and when people come to the show, they'll notice that sometimes we don't get a chance to breathe.
It's interesting you said it, Delana, because it reminds me a little bit of the process in comparison to other theaters, and Alison can talk about this as well. But I know when you used to do stuff at SAWT, they also had a very short rehearsal period, where it was
Mhm.
like 2 weeks or something, 3 weeks sometimes.
Mm. Depending on the show. So when we were putting on more complex productions like The Light in the Piazza, Little Night Music, Evita, the larger musicals, those would have about a 4-week rehearsal process. But even that is a bit short for something mounted on that scale. So the expectation fairly consistently is that you come in already knowing your music, your lines passing well from step one. Otherwise, it'll end up being inhibitive and creating inhibition in the process. Excuse me.
As
um,
as a
and so
performer, do you prefer a shorter process or a longer process?
I would say I prefer what might be considered a somewhat longer process. I like to have an entire month with a show before I take it to an audience because I want to feel as though I've lived in it for a while. It's difficult to describe, but there are moments that you pass through as an actor when you have new material, when you're sort of, carnivorously taking in the new information, and then none of it is settled. And so you feel like you don't know any of it. And then you start to get traction on it. And then I don't know if this is true for the two of you. Please speak to a difference if you don't also experience this. But there's also then a moment where I feel like, never mind, I've forgotten all of it. I actually don't know anything. And so there's this learning curve of I'm getting it, I'll never get it. Followed by, oh, I have it, actually, it's fine. And so I have to go through that entire process and have that terrified moment every time I go through a process of thinking, oh no, I'll never get this, actually. And that's
And,
usually before it locks in.
if you would, Tim, contrast that in comparison to ACT, which is a whole different thing in terms of, correct me if I'm wrong, but ACT usually has a pretty long process. And not only that, the long process, they also have a show that runs for 3, 4 weeks sometimes. Quite a difference, Tim, is it?
Yeah, so I think it is a bit of a luxury to have that long rehearsal process. It's not something that always happens in the theater world, but it is nice to have that time to really sink into your character and have those moments of, I've done the work. Now it feels like I don't know this character at all because I've done all this work, and like, what does that even mean? But then, you trust the process, you find it. So being able to go on that journey in a long process is nice, but it's not always what you get. So it's important for us as actors to be able to handle that short rehearsal process and do the homework and come to rehearsals really prepared. And it's really, really nice for shows like this, like for Dolls of New Albion, you can tell that everyone in this cast is doing their homework, and is not phased by the short rehearsal process at all, which is amazing. And yeah, the short run time is a shame because it would be nice to be able to put this show in front of as many people as possible because it's really good. But that just means you gotta get those tickets while you can.
And talk, if you would, you mentioned the homework. Talk about the homework then you do in terms of preparing for this show.
Yeah, so it's really just listening to it starts with the recordings, right? So you want to listen to the other people singing the songs so that get a sense of how they sound. But you do want to distance yourself from that as early as you can and start working with the rehearsal tracks, which are just the music without any voices, and putting your own interpretation on it. And since it's an opera and there's no dialogue, there's no lines to learn. So that's kind of where the process of that ends. You're like, as long as you've got the music, you're good. And then once you know your words and your songs, then you've got to put acting choices and emotion and all of that, like deepening the character, put that on it as well.
Had you ever done anything like this before?
I've done a lot of shows with very short rehearsal processes. When I was living in New York, I was doing a lot of like workshops and readings. So it's a similar sort of thing where you don't have a lot of time, and you've got to learn the music really fast and get it on its feet pretty quick. So yeah, this is no
also in
stranger
terms
to
of
that.
an opera. Had you ever done that before?
I've never done opera. Let's see. I think actually Grease was the closest because that's basically a rock opera. There's not a lot of scenes and dialogue in the show Grease
And
because it's
Alison,
mostly songs.
I've had the pleasure of seeing you, Allison, in several things that we call like opera. You mentioned some of the Sondheim stuff. Um, do you prefer that kind of role, Allison, or what kind of roles do you like doing?
So yeah, I know that you referenced earlier me being around Sard and Mars Hill. When I was doing my undergrad music degree at Mars Hill, the Asheville Lyric Opera still
Oh,
existed.
well, that's right. Yeah.
And so I was in the opera chorus and had a comprimario role here or there. And so my background throughout undergraduate was opera focused. And so actually opera is an area of comfort for me and I really love it. And I love singing in other languages as well. So this sung through idea of sort of what you experience as a musical rehearsal process for an opera or for legit musical theater that's going to be, your Sondheims, your Les Mis, Phantom of the Opera, those sort of things. Having a much heavier music based rehearsal process is an area of comfort for me, and so this feels really familiar in some ways and different in others because it is definitely the vocal style is definitely not opera, it's pop.
Mhm.
And Delina, the same question. Have you ever done anything like this before?
Believe it or not, I have. Again, when I was in high school. Now, these two will probably laugh, especially Allison. I actually was in a production of The Mikado,
Okay.
Gilbert and Sullivan, and I played I played
That's awesome.
Katisha. No, of course
Yes,
I
you
did.
did.
Now, mind you, I out of every one that is in this show, I don't get me wrong, I love to sing, I love to, but it's not my voice is not operatic. And good news for this, it is very, like Allison was saying, it is a little more pop oriented, which is good. The Mikado, I basically I played a performer playing an opera singer is what I played as my role. And again, it's a Gilbert and Sullivan, and had a great time because I was the evil character. I could kind of get away with, emoting more than singing in that particular show. So yeah, I've actually got a little bit of background in them. But beyond that, tons of musical theater, period, which has been great.
Moving forward, do you have a favorite role you've always wanted to play?
Myself,
Yeah.
well, the funny thing is the one that I never got a chance to play was Ado Annie in Oklahoma. I didn't get a chance to play that one, but the other big one that I wanted to play that I did get a chance to play was um, oh my God, Adelaide in Guys and Dolls. I played
Mm.
Adelaide in Guys and Dolls. So I got a chance to play that one, and that was a lot of fun.
How about in the future, though? Anything you've always wanted to do that you're looking forward to do?
Again, there's so much new stuff that has come out, and I will tell you, as a quote unquote theater kid, I guess life just gets so busy and I don't get to see any of that new
Right.
stuff. Like I'm not gonna sit there and say, I would love to be in Hamilton because I'm not gonna be in Hamilton. Um, but I don't, off the top of my head, I don't. I'm looking forward to doing just more straight plays, more serious, more serious plays in the future. As to what those are, don't know. Let's just get out there and let's just do them.
Okay. Same question, Tim. Same thing for you. Anything you haven't done yet that you'd like to do in the future?
Yeah, so I had for the longest time my dream role I finally got to play was Mark in Rent. So my
Nice.
answer has to change now, because that doing that at ACT was like a dream for me. I think in the future, I'm looking at things like I really love the role of Leo Frank in Parade. If you know that
Mm.
musical, that is such a
Don't
beautiful
know it
show
yet.
and a really powerful role. I would love to do that. In terms of newer things, the musical Bright Star is also up there for me. I love that show. I'd love to play, and now I can't think of the lead character's name in that, but
Rose is great.
yeah, the guy in Bright Star would be fun too.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe before your time you weren't in there, but ACT just killed it.
I know. I
Yeah.
wish that that happened right before I moved to Asheville, so I didn't get a
Mm.
chance to see that production, but I heard
As
it was
good a
amazing.
performance as I've seen. So in the future, and Allison, back to you. Anything you want to play you haven't done yet?
I'd like to do more Shakespeare. I'd like to play Laertes in Hamlet.
Nice.
Um, and the reason for that, I won't soapbox it for very long, I promise you, is just because we are seeing a little bit more of flexibility and fluidity in casting. And I have looked over the role and really love how the dynamic changes between Laertes and Ophelia when she's an older sister,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
also how that changes the dynamic with Hamlet as well, especially by the time they get to their duel at the end of the play. And so that's a dream role for me is Laertes.
Too
Nice.
bad though you mentioned it because I love singing in musicals, so I'd have to give that up. And something that Delina asked, it's kind of a final question, but I know you mentioned, Delina, you've done some directing in the past. Do you enjoy directing or acting, or do you have a preference?
I mean, my love is always going to be acting, but I will tell you, I really, really, really enjoy directing. I've only gotten a chance to do it. I've only done it a couple of times here in Asheville for some very small, like one was for a reading and one was for just a very small, like 10-minute one act. Would love to get more into directing. Because I used to do it more before I moved to Asheville. I used to do it quite a bit on like the college level and some things of that nature. And I do enjoy doing it. I do enjoy pulling things out of people, to get them to do what, well, not necessarily even what I want, but what makes the show better. And that's one of the things that I really enjoy doing that. But yeah, I mean, as most of us performers will tell you, we like to be in the spotlight and we like for people to look at us. So I do enjoy being on stage,
Well,
probably more, but I do enjoy directing.
Well,
So.
it's funny you said that, and I'll ask Tim and Allison the same question. But many times I ask actors, and they say you prefer directing, in
Mm.
that the truth is they're not telling the truth, but the truth is they don't have to memorize the lines that way. And
Well, yeah,
so,
there's that
right,
too.
or especially it's even more so, Delina, when you see somebody does a one-person play. It's the only person. If you screw up, that's the only person knows is you and the director. But
Yep.
Allison, same thing too. I don't know if I've seen you do this, but have you done any directing, Allison?
Not not really. I if you read the playbill, it might say that I assistant directed Wuthering Heights with Dog Utopia
All
back
right,
in
that's right. Yeah.
but functionally I was an acting coach. Eric did all the boring, detailed, technical aspects, all those aspects of directing that are and they're not all boring, don't get me wrong, but just all of the technical aspects of directing himself. And so he took that off of me and gave me the opportunity to be really just an acting coach for
Boy,
the
I love
cast
that. That was a
that.
great show too, wasn't it? Wuthering Heights. I love that performance. It's so
Yeah.
good. And Tim, have you done any directing at all, or do you want to?
I have actually, yeah. When I was living in Virginia in one of my past lives, I was a teacher. When COVID happened, I kind of pivoted my career into education for a little while, and I was working at a middle school in Virginia, and I got the opportunity to direct their spring musicals. I did two of them,
Nice. Yeah.
and that was so much fun. And working with students was like really, really right in my wheelhouse of experiences because I'm a kid in my heart, like always, and that was really really fun and my first foray into like directing productions. I've never directed any adults, mind you, but that was really fun, and I'd
Okay.
love to
And
do that again.
last question for you. After this show, do you have anything else you can share that's upcoming? You've been cast at, or you can share?
I think actually, well, I can say that there are things happening soon, and you might see me in the upcoming season at Heart, but I don't think
Nice.
it's been officially announced so I'm not going to say which show or officially yet.
So if people want to track you down or find out what you're up to, what's the best bet?
Probably social media. My Instagram is where I post a lot of things. That's Sam_Timson.
And by the way, one of the stupid things about Instagram, they don't use the real names, so you can't look up Tim Sampson. You have to, I got you to
Yeah.
find you there. Allison, anything else you have upcoming that you can share?
So in September and October, I'll be doing a show. Hold on, let me get the name right. Sort of Damocles, the music of Rocky Horror, I believe is the
yeah.
official name of this. But it's the music of the Rocky Horror Picture Show with a live band,
Oh,
and I'll be playing Janet, and that will, I think, do a wee bit of touring as well, also into Charlotte, Knoxville, and Johnson City, I believe. I recently joined this cast, and so I'm still a little fuzzy on some of the details, but that
and
will be in September and October.
we'll play locally also?
Am I?
Will it play locally anywhere?
Yes, it will. Mhm. Yes, and
Okay.
it'll also play in Nashville.
Okay, and so if folks want to track you down, Allison, see what you're up to, what's best bet?
Same thing, social media. I have an Instagram, just says Alison Abides, and that is my Instagram. And that's probably the best bet for figuring out what I'm up to
Okay,
next. I'm
great.
not usually very cagey with that information. It's usually right in the bio.
Okay, great. Thank you. And final question, Delina, two questions actually. So in terms of upcoming after this show, Delina, anything that you can share that you're going to be in?
Right off the bat, I don't have anything going on coming up right now. Maybe possibly toward the end of the year, but there's nothing that is set in stone at this point. So currently nothing for me. I've got this one, and I don't know. It's a blur as to what it might be in the future.
And folks want to track you down, how do they find you?
Just like everybody else, just social media. My Instagram is thespiana_00 at Instagram, and then I'm on Facebook as well. I'm not on Facebook as much anymore because I got tired of it, but Instagram definitely you can track me down that way.
Okay, and lastly, if folks want to see this show, again, we mentioned the dates, I think we're April 16th to the 26th. How do they get tickets or how do they find that information on this one?
If you go to doggedutopia.com, and that's doggedutopia.com, it'll splash right up on the front page, the Dolls of New Albion, with link to tickets and all that stuff. And I'm pretty sure in all of our bios, you will find links to tickets somewhere in all of our social medias as well.
Okay, and this is going to be at where?
It will be at the Asheville Performing Arts Academy at 55 Shiloh Road, Unit 4, 28803 in Asheville.
And does this have more seats than BB Theater? Do you know?
Yes,
It
it
does.
does.
Okay, because BB Theater, I think you really only like 46 or less seats, very tough. So people want to get seats. So most of
Mhm.
the shows go, the tickets go pretty quickly. Everybody says that, but I do recommend you get this, especially if you want to see the three of you guys are great. So
Thank you.
anyway, thank you much for joining me in this edition of Blaine's World podcast. I also thank my producer, Cappy Tassetti, and I certainly hope to see you in the Dolls of New Albion. Thanks, guys.
Get your
Thanks,
tickets.
Blaine.
Thanks, Blaine.
This was great.